Hey, what's up, everyone? My name's Matt Franklin from Portfolio Degree. Typically, I teach investment training courses, but today I wanted to share a story about career pathing. A number of years ago, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and throughout that process, a number of things really kind of came to me in terms of a good way to develop a career path. So I wanted to share some of those things with you today. All right. A lot of what I'm going to talk to you about centers around this story, where a friend of mine, I had recently graduated from grad school, and he was trying to get into grad school. Now, in terms of like the grades that he had in undergrad and his test scores, everything would align with what you would expect from a typical candidate for, the Harvards, the Stanfords, the Yales, the schools that are very difficult to get into. But he had all the right scores to get in if that's what he wanted to choose to do. His problem, however, was everywhere that he was applying for was denying him. So he called me to try to figure out, is there some type of insight? Is there something that I'm not considering? And I simply asked him a few basic questions that really led me to figuring out how to help people career path. The first question I asked him was, if salary didn't matter, what organization would you work for and why? Now, not what job do you want? What organization would you choose to work for? Now, my friend is an avid golfer. We grew up golfing together, and he loves to be out on the course. He also had a degree in golf course management. So, of course, golfing was something that he loved and wanted to be affiliated with. And he immediately told me, if I could work for anybody, it would be the PGA Tour. So I said, okay, well, where is the PGA Tour headquartered? And he said, well, Jacksonville, Florida. Okay, so you want to work for the PGA Tour and they're headquartered in Jacksonville, Florida. Okay. Now, in terms of working for the PGA Tour, what is their main business? And he didn't know. So I said, okay, let me ask us a different question. What sort of major are you putting down that you want to study? And he said, oh, I want to study operations because I want to know how to manage and run a team. And I said, okay, um, I don't really see how that aligns with, necessarily running a golf course. An operations degree is more like you want to go work in a factory running a line and you're good at running that team, or you want to work for a big corporation and you're good at running a team. And even then, that's kind of more a management degree, which can be a degree that's very difficult to break into the field because you generally need a good set of skills to develop yourself into that manager position before, just becoming the manager. But regardless, he was trying to figure out, how does he pitch it the right way so that he can get the right kind of reaction and get into the schools so he can get that opportunity. So I asked him, I said, well, if you want to work for the PGA Tour, what's the core business of the PGA? And his immediate response was golf. And I said, no, that's not the business of the PGA. Yes, that's the product, golf. But the business of the PGA is marketing, it's sponsorships, it's all those logos that you see all over the stands and all the things that are lining each of those holes. And when he began to understand that and see, oh, okay, their business, yes, they represent golf, but their business is marketing. I said, that's right. So if you write an entrance exam story where you tell them that you want to study marketing so that you could go and work for the PGA Tour to help them enact better sponsorships and negotiate better deals, now that's a story that makes sense and aligns with, a future that this college is going to want to represent. And it's a story that makes sense. So, we talked a little while over lunch, hung up. It was good catching up with him. And then little did I know, he actually went back. He changed all of his applications to align with that story, the story that made sense. And wouldn't you know, he got accepted into every single school that he applied to. Now he ended up picking a really good one, and he went on there and studied and got his degree, and now he's off in his corporate life. But it was that interaction, that moment, that led me to feeling like I needed to create this. So let's just kind of kick this off with that little story and talking about how, picking a path is not about making any type of life commitment. It's about knowing where you want to go and being able to communicate that. And for him, It was all about having the right story, a story that made sense, that the university could get behind and support, because they knew that with that well articulated story, that this was going to be a student that they could represent, that would be successful and represent their university well. So, getting into career pathing a little bit more, what exactly is career pathing? To me, it's really just a systematic approach to help you find an industry to work in where you're naturally inspired to research what's going on, and where your role is one that leverages your strengths in order to maximize your daily and lifetime impact. His main motivation was the PGA Tour. So, by understanding that, he realized that, well, if I want to interact with that, then I need to have a degree in marketing, and that will position me best to interact with that and ascend up the ladder, because that's the core business behind the operations of the PGA Tour. Now, beyond career pathing, or beyond understanding the basics of career pathing, probably one of the first things that you can begin to do is look at what organizations do you like? Which ones do you follow? What are you naturally interested in? Is it automobiles? Is it golf? Is it home construction? Would you like to work for the government? And it doesn't have to be a specific, like, I want to work for Lockheed Martin and I want to handle government contracts. You don't have to get that specific with it. Just for now, think about what it is you're interested in and what you'd like to be engaged with on a regular basis. So, and again, going back to that story, if there's one way to kind of think about it, it would be, if money didn't matter, what would you be spending your time doing? And whatever thought just popped in your head, that's probably what you should be pursuing, because you're naturally going to be motivated to work in those areas, and that's going to translate through that level of excitement. Now, in terms of some of the industries that are out there, here are just some basic examples. If you're interested in learning more about investments, my investment website, you can create a free account and you can see some more of these industries. Now, you can't see all the stocks, but you can also go to like NASDAQ.com and download a copy of their stock screener. And that's going to have all of the stocks that are traded on the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange, along with their industries and their sectors, in a list where you can filter it. So it's a free spreadsheet that you can download. That can be a pretty powerful tool. And just begin to understand what type of industry you'd like to work in. But keep in mind, when you define an industry, it's sometimes a loose definition. Like, I previously, almost 10 years ago, worked in the travel industry, which is an awesome industry to work in, lots of great people. But even though I call it the travel industry, it's really not the travel industry. There's an airline industry, there's a hotel industry, there's a restaurant industry, there's an advertising industry, there's, like credit cards and business services, EDP, so electronic payments, all that type of stuff, even travelers insurance. All of those can be their own little segment, but then can also kind of be under a larger umbrella. So even though I worked in the travel industry, I loved the travel industry, for a little while I actually pursued trying to do hotel finances, but I just really didn't have that background, which led me actually into automotive. And automotive is a great space to work in. It can be very challenging, but it can also be extremely rewarding as well. Then another thing to consider are just the different economic sectors. So here are some examples. Maybe you can't land on an industry. Maybe you don't know, oh, I want to work in automotive, or I want to work in aerospace. But maybe if you take a step back and maybe you're a very environmentally conscious person, so maybe energy would actually be a good place for you to work. I remember one time I had gotten a promotion at work, and I took my family out to celebrate. And the waiter that was waiting on our table, when he found out that I worked for an automotive company, he said, it's too bad we can't convert quicker to electric vehicles and do a better job saving the environment. And I asked him, well, what do you do? And he said, well, I'm about to graduate and I've got a degree in environmental services and I really want to help clean up the world. But, all these government organizations aren't hiring right now, which this was a number of years ago. And we're actually kind of in that, with all this Doge stuff going on, we're kind of in another time period like that. And I told him, I said, well, an organization like mine, you view them as a large polluter, but we hire people just like you to try to minimize that impact and try to make that go away. So just know, if you're somebody that, you're very environmentally conscious or whatever it is, that you're passionate about, The traditional way of going about having a job might not be what you're thinking. You might be thinking, oh, I need to go work for the government, I need to work for the EPA or whatever. But what you might find is some of the largest polluters that are out there, the oil and gas companies, automobile, manufacturers, all these large industrial operations, they need people just like you to help them minimize their impact. And at least in my opinion, you will be a lot more effective working for a private organization, helping them to diminish their environmental impact than you ever will working for a government going around trying to tell people what to do. Because, how many times when somebody has come around and told you what to do, have you listened? Probably not too frequently. So if you want to go and work for the government and you want to go around and try to tell people what to do, now a lot of them are mandated, they have to follow you, but a lot of your interactions are not going to be super positive. Whereas if you work for a large corporation and you're helping to clean up sort of their environmental impact, your impact on a day-to-day basis, I can assure you, everybody that's working in that plant, in that site, is going to be grateful that they have you around, that you can help catch those issues and help to correct them before they become problems. And you're going to be a valued member of that community. So again, just as you're thinking about this from an economic from a sector and industry standpoint, sometimes you have to take a step back, whether it's at the sector level, and really kind of figure out what it is that you're passionate about and how you want to engage with that. And sometimes, working for the actual company that is the biggest polluter in that example might be the best situation for you because that's where you can make the biggest impact. So just something to consider as you're thinking about where do you want to work, or who do you want to work for, or what do you want to impact. Then beyond that, you have to better understand how you work. Now, me personally, I love working by myself because I'm in control of everything. Now, that's something that I have to learn how to let go of because you just frankly can't be that way. But I know that I love working as an independent. I'm also a pretty good one-on-one communicator. I started out earlier on in my career doing retail sales for about 6 years and then moved into professional sales and then transitioned into finance once I got my degree. So one-on-one communication, I really enjoy. I was terrified of it as a kid. I'm still getting used to this YouTube stuff. But for the most part, working as an individual or doing things one-on-one, I'm pretty good at, which is why I do coaching and why I've transitioned to this. Because being in a corporate environment and managing a team, and as those teams get larger and larger and larger, certain people, they're extroverts. They're really good at managing large teams and large number of peoples, and they love the interaction. They want to interact with people all day long. Me, it's draining. It drains my energy. And as much as I love talking to people, I really do. I enjoy getting to know people. I love having conversations. Most of the time, I just talk too much, if I'm honest. So, I really enjoy that aspect, but as working as a team leader is kind of difficult for me because it's hard for me to leave those conversations to move to the next thing. And then sometimes when I've tried to be quicker about that or more conscious about, okay, I've been talking to this person for 2 minutes, let them get back to their job, move on. Instead of kind of having that conscious understanding, then, the flip side of that is sometimes when I'm trying to avoid that, I might be too quick with what I'm saying, and it comes across as like almost arrogant or mean, and that's definitely not my intention either. I'm here to help people, and we're here to get the work done and get things accomplished. But over time, I realized that I am best as an individual worker and working one-on-one with other people. Now, for you, it might be different. You might be that group leader. You might not be the group leader, but you might prefer working in a group setting. Maybe certain aspects of how you go about your work isn't the strongest, but people around you are strong at those things. So you enjoy working together in a group because you can really kind of balance off of each other's strengths and weaknesses. So really try to understand how you want to interact with people at work because that can really make a difference between, that can make a difference with what kind of role you end up with. Not everybody's going to be a manager. Not everybody's going to be a C-level executive or a director or some vice president. And I'm here to tell you that a lot of you probably, if you got to that level, would not enjoy that. You really, all of your time, it belongs to the corporation. If you really enjoy and you're passionate about what you do, you're not going to care because it's something that you enjoy and you're just always going to want to be involved in it. And if you know good leaders, you know that's how they are. It's second nature for them to be involved in this. They're not doing it because they want that next promotion necessarily. That could be a motivation, but that's not necessarily why they're doing it. They're doing it because they really like what they're doing and they're engaged with it and they want to continue to push those around them so that they can be better at it. But if you're one of those people, great. Maybe you can be in one of those types of positions. I've been in those positions myself in the past, but they wear on you over time and they take your energy. So if you are aspiring to get to that level, just have some patience, allow time to take place. But even then, I'll tell you, working in those group settings by being that individual that maybe you come in an hour early and you work just a little bit more than everybody else every day, you will be able to differentiate yourself. And honestly, just being a reliable employee, I never used to think this as an employee, but as a manager, having reliable employees makes all the difference. You might have employees, but when you have reliable employees that you can trust to do their jobs and get the job done and done correctly without your involvement, they're worth 10 times their salary. Okay, those are the folks that are underpaid because they're really carrying everybody else. But believe me, you do that for a couple years, it will get noticed. You will be able to ascend up the ladder because your effort will get noticed and it will rise above everybody else that you're working with. There's a motivational speaker I'll talk about in a second called Eric Thomas, and he talks about really working hard for a period of about 5 years in order to see those breakthroughs. And that's exactly what I saw in my career was over the course of about five years, I would hit those different levels within the corporation and I would be at that next level with those next type of responsibilities, whether that's being a supervisor or a manager or moving on to the director role and being responsible for a department. So again, the point of this was just to try to understand how you work best with others, because believe me, I've known some folks that they're phenomenal analysts and they're really good with numbers and they're really good independent thinkers. And in the right setting for the right corporation, that person can still be a vice president. They might not even have any direct reports, but they can still ascend to that level. But knowing how you work best is important for your growth at whatever corporation you're at. And that really leads into this next step, which is being able to understand and define your strengths and weaknesses. Now, for me, I'm very analytical. I tend to be pretty organized. I can be a deep thinker, which potentially could also be a weakness because sometimes it prevents me from being decisive. But I'm also a hard worker and I'm pretty creative. So that's part of why I was able to kind of come up with solutions and be able to continue to rise up the ladder at the corporations that I work for. But in terms of weaknesses, I program websites and I'm terrible at object-oriented programming. It just does not make sense with how my brain works, and it's always been a struggle to try to work through those things. And probably it's because of my next weakness. I'm not good at spelling or writing. That's always been kind of my weakest subject was English growing up, and that was, I could get pretty much all A's, maybe a couple B's, but man, English, I would struggle to pass that class. I don't know why. I speak it right, but it's not as easy as you might think, especially I'm sure for people that it's not their first language. And anyways, it was a struggle for me probably up until the point when I was in college and I was studying Spanish and really kind of getting into verb conjugation and other things, and then things with English started to click. And anyways, I've been working at it for years, but I still feel like I suck at it. And then that kind of leads into my next point where I can be too critical of myself because I expect perfectionism, and that just simply doesn't exist. Beyond that, because I expect perfection, I have a hard time finishing things. I can work on things and work on things and work on things, and it can be 10 times better than the next best thing, but I'm still going to sit there and go, no, but I need to do this, and I need to do that, and I need to do that. So I've had to learn over the years when to just finish and accept things as they are and move forward and say, no, this is good enough. Okay, so, as you're thinking about your strengths and weaknesses and you're choosing, going back to the college example, if you're trying to enter undergrad or grad school, think about that major and what type of major plays off of those strengths and weaknesses. Now, for me, analytical, organized, deep thinker, more of the accounting finance route makes sense. More of an introvert, if I was more extroverted, I did sales to try to push myself to get beyond that sort of fear of talking to other people. And it really helped. But ultimately, I'm still not an extrovert, but some people are. And if you know that and you're good at talking to other people, maybe sales and marketing is a good path for you. From the same respect, if you like analyzing data, marketing research is a really good field to go into because they're always studying, consumer trends and buying behavior and things of that nature. So there's a variety of different ways that even within the major, if you understand your strengths and weaknesses and you know how you want to work or how you work best, then all of that is going to really help you tell that story of what you want to do and why you want to do it. Now, if you're still trying to figure out, well, hey, Matt, I don't necessarily know all of my strengths and weaknesses, there are a variety of different tests that are out there, whether you want to do like the Myers Briggs test. Like I have tested as an ENTJ and an INTJ, probably depending on how I'm feeling about other people at that point in time. But there's all these different personality types that can try to help you understand how you work best with others. One that I took about a year and a half ago that I really enjoyed was color code. They color code you into these 4 different colors, and you're not necessarily one or another. You're a portion of all of them, but each one means something, and it's a kind of a fun test to take. And then, of course, a lot of people anymore kind of will reference like the Chinese zodiac or the Western zodiac or some of the numerology things of that nature. I can't tell you how frequently I see repeating numbers everywhere I look all the time. And it's actually kind of fun if you look up numerology and then you type in the number just to see what pops up. The world is an interesting place, and I think we know probably about that much about it. And that type of stuff is just kind of fun for me sometimes. And then, of course, you can find all sorts of career tests online where they try to help direct you towards a certain industry or career path based on your interests. So there are a lot of resources that are out there to you. Then once you understand and you have that path that you believe you want to go down, then it's all about finding the right places to learn that information. And that could just be, on the internet, listening and watching other people's videos. But that might mean going to a university, that might mean going to a trade school or signing up to go to a military school. Maybe it's just something simple that you can do at a local community college, or if you know the right people, you could get an apprenticeship and you could start learning it. So also start to think about, that path that you want to go on. College isn't meant for everybody, and it's getting ridiculously expensive. I've got some young ones that I'm going to have to pay for pretty soon, and that's a big hurdle to get over. Anymore, even state schools can be upwards of $40,000 per year. So to get a basic degree as a young person, you're talking about $160,000 to $200,000 just to get an undergraduate degree. That's a lot of money for something that's going to take you from, making $30,000 a year to $50,000 a year, or maybe I'm a bit old. Maybe it's $50,000 a year to $80,000 a year. I don't know. But think about that because, there are a lot of skilled trade jobs that are open or about to be open. The factories that I worked at, the vast majority of the skilled trades were over 55 years old. So if you're a young person, you're looking for a good career path where you can make 6 figures, where maybe you don't have to go to college and get all that additional debt. Learning a trade can be very advantageous, especially pipe fitting or being an electrician, things in that nature, welding. All of that is really good. It's really in need. And, if you're an American and you want to see factories stay here in the future, we need tradespeople because otherwise we're going to lose out to Mexico. Mexico has millions of people that are qualified trades. They're, at a cost parity of about 10 to 1 to most Americans. So, and, you can trade for free right back into the United States. So if we want to keep manufacturing here in the U.S., we need tradespeople. So if you're somebody that you've always thought about it and you think that that would be really cool and a better fit for you and how you want to go work, please, I encourage you to go and find out more about those paths. They can be incredibly rewarding. You don't have to go to college to be successful. And honestly, a lot of very successful business owners, many of them didn't even graduate from college. And I'm not talking about like the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world. Those situations are pretty unique. I just mean a lot of folks that they get out beyond school and they start to struggle, or they run into maybe the law, or they have some other situations that pop up where now they can't they can't work for these big companies anymore because they won't pass the background checks or they can't get in the front door. So what do they? Well, they have to live and provide for their families too, right? So a lot of them will start different businesses and end up becoming pretty successful business owners if they can do it right. So just know that if you want to get into business, if you want to be a business owner, you don't necessarily have to go to college. You can learn on the job. It's tougher that way, but you'll probably be more effective running that business than a typical college student. Because a lot of times, once you get out of college, people, they'll come and it's a job to them. To you, running that organization, it's your livelihood, but to them, it's just a job. So, that passion will translate through a little bit better sometimes for folks that they pursue what they're interested in. And beyond sorry, I'm kind of rambling here, but the point of this slide right here was all about not only understanding the type of education that you would need in order to go on and do what it is you want to do, but knowing where to get that education as well. In my original example, I talked and I highlighted to my friend, he wanted to work for the PGA Tour. So I asked him, where are they located? Well, they're located in Jacksonville, Florida. And I said, okay, is there a university in Jacksonville, Florida that you could apply to? And he said, yes, Jacksonville State. I said, okay, well, take a look at them to see if, because they're local, if the PGA Tour does internships with Jacksonville State, or if they interact with them. Because, even though Jacksonville State, I mean, they're a good college, they're just not necessarily Harvard or Stanford or Yale. They just don't quite have that same reputation. But a lot of times it comes down to who you know, not what you know. And if you can go to a college or a university located in the area that you want to live, that interacts with the companies that you want to interact with, sometimes, that can be a better path than going that Harvard or Yale or Stanford route. Now, that's always usually a pretty good path and allows people to position themselves for nice lives because of a lot of the connections that they get at those universities. But just know, if you didn't get a perfect 4 point in high school, but you're still, very ambitious, you can do it. You just have to figure out what's the best pathway to make those connections, to get those introductions in order to make it all happen. And, that really leads into this next slide, which it's all about networking. It's all about the people that you know. I remember when I was back in grad school, I was hanging out with a friend of mine and we were just talking in general and about one of our professors. And he mentioned how he couldn't believe that this professor had gotten a grant for like $20 million to do a study for this corporation. And he couldn't believe that he had been able to conjure up $20 million. And I remember telling him, this is kind of back when Mitt Romney had run for president a few years earlier and Barack Obama beat him. But throughout that election, Mitt Romney had mentioned that, corporations are people. And he's actually referring to the legal status of corporations. But that comment always stuck with me, that corporations, beyond that legal status comment, corporations are people. It's just a group of people that have a common goal that they're marching towards. Now, some of them are there because maybe they like accounting and it's a job to them. But the vast majority of people are there and continue to return every day because they like what they do and they like interacting with it. So if you can figure out who those people are and you can start to figure out how to network them, whether that's reaching out to them on LinkedIn or finding out when they have networking events in the local town or local city or when they're reaching out to local universities, you can leverage those types of events for yourself and try to figure out how to make inroads into those corporations. Because believe me, as somebody that hired people for a number of years, you're receiving resumes all day long, but the ones that you really sit down and go through are the ones that, oh, your buddy walked into your office and said, hey, I've got this friend. Oh, and they have a similar degree to you and they have a similar background. And hey, they wanted me to pass along their resume because they're looking for a new opportunity. I can tell you, I spent probably 10 times the amount of time reviewing and looking at those resumes than the ones that I would typically receive because it came through a recommendation from somebody that I knew, that I trusted, that I had an established relationship with. So if you go out there and you're networking with others, that can be very advantageous for your career and can lead to some good opportunities for you. So just remember, it's all about the people. And then once you do finally get there, say you've been able to tell your story, you've gotten into the university, you've graduated, you've gotten the opportunity that you want, now you're working for that corporation. Well, the first 10 years it's not about, oh, I'm going to immediately become the CFO or the CEO or that's my goal. The first 10 years, I call it building a ladder. It's all about establishing all those relationships and learning the things that you need to learn so that you can continue to progress and grow. You're going to get opportunities based on a few different things. Are you able to control the environment? Are you knowledgeable over what you're going to be dealing with? And do you have any type of prior experience with that? So a lot of your first 10 years is just gaining experience with the things that are around you, with what you're interacting with the people that you're interacting with, and being a trustworthy individual that they can rely on. And I'll tell you, the vast majority of the promotions that I received throughout my career, I didn't know the people. I got tapped on the shoulder because somebody told another person who told another person that, oh, hey, this guy over here is really good and he knows this stuff and he thinks this way and he might be a good fit for this thing over here. So I actually rarely, if ever, applied for jobs. In fact, pretty much every job that I ever applied for the corporation that I worked for the last 10 years, I didn't get that job. In fact, usually I get told the reasons why I'm not qualified for that job. But then sometimes I'd see jobs on the job board that are out there that I think were way beyond where I was at. And then suddenly somebody would tap me on the shoulder and go, hey, we want to interview you for this role. We think it would actually be a good fit for you. And then suddenly those things work out. So just, kind of keep your head down and keep grinding and keep working at it and make sure that that first 10 years is you building a ladder, because that first 10 years is important. That can launch you to that point of being a director, being a vice president, or getting into that initial threshold. Because guess what? After 10 years, all those people that you were working with that were in their late 40s and 50s and 60s, now they're retiring. Now they're not there anymore. And some of the other positions, mid-level managers, guess what? They're going to hire from outside the firm to fill some of those positions because maybe everybody internally doesn't have quite the right experience. So if you're able to leverage those opportunities with those people while you're there and you continue to build and be trustworthy, then the opportunities will present themselves. But if you're just expecting immediate rewards, it's not going to happen. But if you set yourself up for having patience and putting forth a lot of hard work, then yeah, after about 10 years, you'll probably be at that level where as new people come in, they'll be working for you and you'll be in the upper echelons of that corporation growing from that point on. And that's really, I forget where I read this, but somebody said, by the time you're about 40, you've pretty much arrived at the level of the corporation that you're going to be at. So now one way you could interpret that is if you are a vice president at 40, it is highly likely that you'll be in the C-suite at some point in your career. But if you're 40 years old and you're still an analyst or a supervisor, you might make it to the manager level at that corporation, but chances are you're probably going to be kind of in that realm. Even as people leave the corporation and retire, they're going to end up hiring people in to be your new manager, not necessarily picking you. So really that first 10 years is very important, that you're working hard at it. And keep in mind, especially for those that will probably be in their 20s, you might also be getting married and having kids or trying to travel and see the world at the time. So just make sure you're careful about how you're sharing all of that at work. Because if you're very oriented towards, oh, today I'm going to buy a ticket to Italy next week, and then we're going to fly to Morocco, and then next month we're going over to Singapore, and then we're going to Hong Kong. I mean, that's cool. And listen, as a young person, you're going to get a lot of experience that's very valuable to you as you grow in your career. But it might actually hinder your opportunities with that corporation because they're going to view you as being focused on traveling the world, not necessarily on helping them build their company. So just kind of be aware of how you come across at times, because you want them to present you with the opportunities. You want them to know and understand that you're committed. Even if outside of work you go and you do other things, that's fine. But if you're talking about them a lot at work, they're going to think that you're not focused. So just keep all that in mind. And again, the first 10 years, probably the most important. And then moving forward, understand how you want to pursue your career. We talked a little bit about being an entrepreneur versus an employee. Both paths can be very advantageous. You can be a good employee for your whole career and retire a millionaire. I know there's a lot of school teachers that they don't make much of anything, but there are a lot of school teachers that I have known throughout my life that by the time they get to retirement, because they've been diligent with their spending and managing their money properly. They've got a million or two sitting in the bank account, and now at 55, 60 years old, they can retire and enjoy themselves. Um, there's a lot of people that would say, well, that's not the path for me. I want to own a business because I want to be a millionaire or a billionaire. That's just something to consider. Like I put this little table here on this chart. So this would be assuming that at year one, you're making $65,000 a year and you get a roughly 3% raise every year, which a lot of people don't. But let's just, for the sake of this example, assume that you do. So you have your base pay, you get your annual raise, and then every year, there's the full total salary. So by 10 years in, you've gone from 66 to 115,000. By another 10, you're up to 156,000. And then by the time you're 30 years in, you're making, probably close to $250,000. And, as time goes on, these numbers naturally just kind of go up because of inflation. But that's just kind of a scheme to show you, or a schedule to show you here that essentially if you're going to work for 32 years, say from the time you're 22 till you're 54, then what you would end up with is you would earn $4.6 million during your career. You would also receive compensation close to about $7 million for all of your benefits and your 401k. So in total, when you add in your benefits and your 401k, the total's about $7 million. So if you want to go that entrepreneur path, just know that your lifetime career is worth about $7 million. So in order to build a company and be an entrepreneur, you need to understand that you need a third of your income should be for you, a third of your income should be for growth, and a third of your income should be to pay for your team. So you don't need to make $7 million if you want to go out and be an independent. You need to make $21 million. So keep that in mind. But if you want to make $21 million and build a company, then just look at it from this standpoint, where if you have a $10 product, that means that you need to have 2.1 million customers over your lifetime, and over 32 years, that's 65,000 customers per year. And you can see how it just breaks it down, where if you're selling a $100 product or $250, that you need fewer and fewer customers to hit those lifetime goals. But obviously communicating the value of that product and getting that transaction, getting that sale as that price point goes up, it can be more difficult, but it depends on your target customer and how much they value what it is you're communicating to them, and whether or not that value beats out that cost or that pain that they have to incur in order to get it. So, if you're good with sales and you can really kind of quantify that value proposition and you can convert those sales, then yeah, if you can build a good $250 product, you might only need 2,600 clients a year. So you're talking like 225 a month or so. You break it down by day, you can give yourself goals, and then you can start working towards that. And initially, it's going to be trickling in. There's going to be next to nobody, but you got to build it up. And then eventually those things will begin to build themselves, and you can hire employees and they can begin to build it for you. But it's not easy. Being an entrepreneur, there's a lot of failure associated with it. The other day I was talking about it in another video in relation to the iceberg example. That little piece of the iceberg that you see above the water, that success, that's what everybody sees. But there's a massive chunk of ice underneath that water, and that massive chunk is failure. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, you better be willing to fail. You better not get discouraged by failure, because failure is your MO as an entrepreneur. You're going to fail a million times and make it once, and everybody's going to see the time that you made it. So you just have to get used to discomfort, and you have to continue to push through it. And ultimately, you have to know that it's going to work. And with a lot of this, whether it's career pathing, whether it's being an entrepreneur, if you know in your mind that this is my path, this is what is going to work for me, almost 100% of the time with people that I've known, that I've interacted with over the years, when they know that something is for them, it happens. It occurs in their life. They become that thing. So if you believe in your heart that this is the path for me, then continue to make actions to march towards that, and that's what you'll have. So, growing throughout your career can honestly be pretty discouraging. There's going to be a lot of opportunities that you're turned down for. There's going to be a lot of jobs that you apply for that you never even hear back from. Things that you get all excited about that, yes, this is the one. Oh my gosh, I want to hear more about this job. This is perfect fit for me. And then you never hear back. So trying to get through and push through all of that and push through that failure, you're going to need to know motivational speakers. You're going to want some of them in your phone that you can listen to so that you can keep your spirits up. Because whether you're working for a major corporation, whether you're an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter. You're going to get beaten down throughout the day. That's just life. And you need somebody that can help lift you back up. And there are a lot of wonderful motivational speakers. Like on the screen here is Eric Thomas. He's awesome. I grew up just south of Detroit, and I love listening to his stuff. Of course, there's Tony Robbins. He's been the guy for the better part of a few decades. And then there's a lot of new folks that are coming out there as well. Sometimes I almost feel like some of the content I do borders on that. That's not my intention. I'm just trying to motivate people. But needless to say, you need some of that in your life. And when I had a job where I was onboarding new individuals to this corporation that I used to work for, I would actually play for them Eric Thomas's motivational speeches. And it was fun how much it would resonate with them. And then we would talk about those things after the fact. So it doesn't really matter what you're going to do throughout your life. You're always going to be faced with adversity. So try to find some resources out there that help to kind of motivate you and get you excited for the day. There's also some other resources that are out there. Like I mentioned, those career tests. And if you're looking at schools, U.S. News and World Reports publishes rankings. You can search Google and they'll pop up in terms of some of the best schools. So there's a lot of great resources that are out there that can really help you define your path. And then ultimately, the thing that I want to leave you with is something that my wife and I started doing years ago. It all came from, she would go into Starbucks and go to get her coffee. And she's somebody that does that every day, and that's fine. But she got to know all of the baristas that were in the Starbucks or Starbucks that she would go to. And every time she would enter the Starbucks, they would all light up, hey, oh my gosh, here's your coffee. It's right here. And she used to talk to me about how cool it was that she would walk in somewhere and these people would light up because they saw her and they were excited to see her and get her on her way and get her coffee that she needed for the day. And I remember telling her, I go, babe, you're a celebrity in your own life. And what I mean by that is you really just kind of have to embrace what you're passionate about. And that passion will come through in what you're doing. And, as you embrace that, then suddenly the people around you are going to be very excited to see you, to be working with you. They're going to almost be glued to you. They're going to be attracted and they're going to want to know what it is you're doing because you're super motivated and excited. And if a lot of us are not naturally in that state. So when you're around others that are very motivated, you're naturally motivated too. So learn how to be a celebrity in your own life, learn how to embrace a lot of these opportunities and, make impactful moments, from those experiences with other individuals that leave a lasting impression. And as long as you do that, then you'll be the type of person that anytime you show up in the room, people light up and they're excited to see you because they know that there's going to be some fun or something that they get from it because, working with you is a phenomenal thing to do because you're so passionate about what you do. So learn how to be that celebrity in your own life. All right. Well, that was it. That was all I had for you. I know that was probably a little bit more than I wanted to say and talk about and get out there, but I thought that this could be something that would be helpful to other folks, that are trying to figure out how to handle career pathing and just ultimately remember, this is all just for training purposes. I'm just sharing this with you. This is not necessarily, advice for you individually. What's going to work for you and what's going to work for each one of you is going to be different, and you have to figure that out. But hopefully this inspires you and puts you on a path where you can better define what your future will be, and then you can work hard at making that happen. So God bless. Good luck. Take care.